So I just got done playing the demo for God Eater 3 on Nintendo Switch. Now this game came out for other platforms back in February of this year. So it's a little bit of a later port to Switch, but it's still within about a 4-month, 5-month window of the original release. I believe this comes out on July 12th. And so pretty soon. Now, the demo is publicly available. All of you that own a Nintendo Switch right now can go to at least the North American eShop. I'm not sure about the other countries, and download the demo. You have to basically look up God Eater 3 or kind of go to upcoming games and find it, and then click on it and go to the demo download. You guys know how this works at this point if you've done any other demos on Nintendo Switch. And the demo took me about 40-ish minutes to complete. Now, of note, that included probably more than half the time spent going through the tutorial stages, because it has a bunch of, and I say levels, it's really like missions. There's like, I believe 7 total missions, 4 of them being tutorial missions. And I played the tutorial missions because, full admittance right now, I've never played a God Eater game before. I assume there's other ones because this one's called God Eater 3, which makes me feel like there's been at least 2 more. And I don't play a lot of games like this, so I was very curious to check this out and do what I'm doing right now, which I guess for now I'm going to call it Prime Impressions. I don't know if I'm going to keep that name. This is basically where I'm just going to give you guys my initial thoughts on a game, be it from a demo or be it from a game I bought. So instead of it being a review per se, because reviews are big time sinks, and we have a stretch goal for that on Patreon, and we're a long ways away from me even considering doing monthly reviews again. This does give me a chance to, whatever games I buy, whatever games I'm trying out with demos, or whatever the case might be, get my thoughts out there on these games from my perspective. And the perspective for this one in particular is someone who has no history with this franchise, knows nothing about it. And my takeaway so far is that it's really fun. Now, one thing I did notice, and I played this in docked mode because that's how I recorded all the footage, is that it is blurry. And I think that blurriness probably carries over to the handheld. You know, when you go handheld, I'm just making that assumption right now, of course. But I don't know. I mean, the moment it booted up, it started off with a really long cutscene. And I didn't really understand what was going on at all, because I assume this is a continuation of story of some kind. So maybe if you're a God Eater fan, you're used to this and this kind of, and it was unskippable, which I guess for me as a new player, I'm like, okay, this looks like a continuation story. I don't know what I'm seeing on screen here. I can't skip it. It's really long, really well animated though. I mean, beautiful looking. But then you get in and you create your character. You start with your name. You choose your gender, male or female, and then you go to character creator. And I did the male character creator, so I'm not exactly 100% sure how the female one works, if there's additional options for different parts of the body. But what I do know is that I was okay with the options there were. You're going to look like a typical anime-style character. It almost felt like someone from Fire Emblem, or basically any anime-style game from Japan. So that's fine and dandy, whatever. I made my character and called it a day. I had no idea what to expect, and you start off the game by having what looks like handcuffs on you and a couple other people you're maybe friends with or work with, and I didn't really understand it because I didn't know what was going on. I assumed that this is a continuation from prior games, and so I went to the tutorial missions. And they're pretty basic. They're basically teaching you the controls, which I need to know for this game that I've never played before. And the tutorial missions are rather boring. To be expected. It's just hit this button to do this, hit that button to do that. What I kind of wish this game would have done is, and I hope that this is true in the retail version, and we already should know if it's true or not, I just haven't played it on other platforms, is all these tutorial missions are so short that they feel like they should just be one mission, just one continuous tutorial mission. But that's not what they did here. And that's kind of my comment on all of these missions. And I get that it's just a demo, but assuming these missions are actually kind of like what the real game is like, then so far anyways, the missions are just really short, and you spend a lot of time in load screens rather than in actually playing the game. and I don't like that. Maybe that's just how this game works. Maybe that's how it's always meant to be. But I didn't like that. And when I got into the actual gameplay, that's when I started getting, like, not necessarily so much in the jail area where it's really confined. It looked gorgeous in the jail area, really confined. You go up to this computer, you select a mission, then you go talk to the guard at the door, and he lets you out to complete that mission. And there's a little funny quip in there about, hey, look, if you die, I'm not going to care. I'm not doing the paperwork for it or whatever. Like, it's funny. So when you go out into the world to do these missions in what appears to be a town or a city that's in turmoil or completely destroyed, you're fighting these beasts. And when you get to the real missions, you get to play 3 of the story missions. It's weird because it doesn't feel like I'm getting much story from the missions. I'm getting just a bunch of combat and fighting big bosses at the end. You fight basically a few enemies, and then you face off against a big boss in each one of these story missions. And the bosses are great. The combat feels fluid. I kind of get it. I was surprised how quick I got that, because this is like an action adventure game, probably more of an action game than an adventure so far. But it's very fun and very fluid. The different attacks with X and Y, and then you can like hold down ZR to modify those attacks and do like special godlike attacks. And on top of that, you can hold down ZL and ZR to do team up attacks if people build up their bar for that. There's also defense mechanics, zooming around the map, double jumps, all this stuff. There's a lot of crazy mechanics in this that you're just going to have to play it for yourself to really fully grasp. And I really enjoyed it, and I found myself getting the hang of the combat quite quickly. And for someone who doesn't play a lot of games like this, I think this was a good experience for me, if nothing else, because I do want to play Astral Chain eventually, and Astral Chain felt like, watching the videos, that the combat was very fast and fluid like this. There's a lot of games that kind of do this fast, fluid combat that I just don't play, so it was nice getting a taste for that anyways, for a game I actually am interested in. Not that God Eater 3 feels and looks bad, but when you get into the actual gameplay part and you're out of the jail cell and out in the city, it kind of reminded me of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Not even just the art style, but also, I mean, the blurriness, the textures, everything about it was like, okay, this is kind of like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, just with, even more higher paced action or something, is kind of what it felt like to me. I mean, you even level up during your attacks, like not level up your character, but your attacks kind of level up, level 1, level 2, level 3. So there's like a level up attack system in there that kind of makes your attacks even more powerful. There's multiple meters and gauges to pay attention to. You could switch between melee and ranged. So you can like fire this giant cannon as ranged or go melee. And for my case, it was with like double swords. The weird thing about the switching mechanic is it seems simple. When they teach you it in the tutorial, it says, hey, hit, the right button, the right shoulder button, to switch between melee and whatever. But for some reason, and I tested this with multiple Joy-Con, and I tested it with a Pro Controller, is that whenever I hit that right bumper button, it just wouldn't really switch. It would just, the game would just willy-nilly decide when that wanted that switch to work. And the thing is, if you hold down that button, it's a completely different thing, because you hold it down and then press the other buttons, and there's other abilities that happen. So it almost feels like they're mapping abilities to buttons and modifiers that maybe we are confusing the system. So as I said, maybe this is just me, and maybe all my controllers are broken. I have no idea. But tapping that right bumper is supposed to switch you to range mode, and I got it to work, but it frustratingly would take me several minutes, and it got to the point where I just stopped using the range mode entirely, just because, one, I'm not really doing a lot of damage with it anyways. It definitely feels like it's something where melee is more effective, at least early on. I'm sure there's going to be more AoE attacks and stuff like this we need to attack from a distance later in the game. But I found myself sticking to melee just because it was so frustrating to switch back and forth, and I never knew when it was going to work. But whatever. That's just like the only gripe I have with the controls. Otherwise, they were fluid and fantastic. The boss designs were great, from giant beetles and like almost like a giant Lionel-looking beast that runs on all fours and then stands up and does crazy things. Like it was just a really interesting and fun fights. They were all super easy, which I expected in a demo, especially the demo is just the beginning of the game, but it was all short. I mean, I spent maybe 5-10 minutes max in each mission, and again, the mission objectives were so simple. It's just kill all the enemies and you're done. It felt a little Dynasty Warriors-esque, or maybe like Trial of the Sword in Breath of the Wild, where it's just, hey, here's a room, clear the enemies, you're done. That's pretty much what this felt like. It felt like just a series of Trial of the Sword missions, and That's an interesting gameplay mechanic. I don't know if this game goes any deeper, though. Someone out there who's got experience with the franchise might know if like that's just the way this game is. It's just a bunch of levels and a bunch of missions like that, or if there's more to it. I assume there's bigger and deeper storytelling and cutscenes and stuff as you get deeper into. Again, they kind of blew their wad at the very beginning of this demo, so whatever. I still don't really understand what I'm doing in terms of like what story-wise, why am I in jail? I still don't understand any of that. But again, if it's a continuation game, I suppose if you played the prior, you'd understand. It's kind of like when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out. There's going to be some story elements probably in there that if you won't get unless you played the prior game, and I feel like that's what's going on here. So I don't want to knock God Eater 3 for that. It's just the way it felt. Now I've seen some people out there compare this demo and do comparisons to PlayStation 4 and all that, and you're seeing a little bit of that on screen right now. I don't really think this is that big of a deal. I think it looks fine in comparison to PlayStation 4 personally. Obviously it's blurrier. Obviously it's not as high resolution, but the frame rate felt great. I don't know if it's 30 or 60. I can't tell because I would need when I'm looking at 30 and 60 FPS, I basically need to go hands-on with a version that is 60 to really see if this is also 60 or 30. I'm sure it's officially confirmed somewhere, but I'm just giving my impressions of the demo. My grand takeaways are that it's really fun. The combat's really fluid. I don't really like the mission setup, but again, that might just be the way this game works. And it's definitely not a game for me. But if any of what I said sounds really exciting to you and sounds fun, and you're watching on the gameplay on screen and you're like, man, this looks like a blast. Hey, it is fun. It is a blast. And if this is your style of game and you like the mission setup and you're a fan of the series, I think this runs great on Switch. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway is despite being blurry, like in terms of frame rate, it's consistent. And it's consistent throughout. There's a zillion effects happening on screen at times, and I love it, and I honestly think it runs really, really well on Switch, despite obvious resolution sacrifices to make it run that well. Again, all in docked mode is what you're seeing. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let me know what you think about these Prime impressions. Do you want to see more of these videos? I'm thinking my next one might actually be on a brand new demo that just dropped for Dragon Quest Builders 2. I did not play the original Dragon Quest Builders. I typically do not like builder games, Minecraft, all that stuff. Everyone keeps telling me I should have tried Dragon Quest Builders in the first place because there's nothing like Minecraft apparently. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll try out that demo and it'll change my mind. But yeah, that is something I can do this year. You know, I know I blew my gaming budget on my son and getting him a Switch and all that. That doesn't mean I can't get these impressions out on demos. I hope we get more and more demos out there. I still have some impressions coming down, a few E3 demos ahead as well. And hey, our end of our actual massive E3 vlog is coming along. We'll be launching tomorrow or the next day. Also, to let you guys know, we are on a new video schedule. This is the last video of the day. This one released, I believe, at the 6 p.m. slot. So now what you're looking at for time slots for videos is the goal is to get 3 videos out a day. But that might not always happen, and there'll be a reason for that. So YouTube only sends out 3 notifications for videos you do every day. And these videos are uploads, and these videos are live streams. So if I live stream, that takes up one of the slots. If I upload, that takes up one of the slots. And they only do 3 in a 24-hour period. So and we're doing a video at 10 a.m., 2 p.m., and 6 p.m. is the goal. And if we do one at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and there's not one at 6, that's because I am going to live stream that night. That's usually what it means. It could also just mean I don't have enough videos to do that. I want to get at least 2 out and always hit that 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. slot. That means some of those videos are going to be done ahead of time. A lot of times the 10 a.m. video won't be news. You're going to be looking at things like this, like an impression video, or like earlier today when you maybe saw me do the Joy-Con Drift one. These are going to be ones that I can plan out ahead of time. So I'm always hitting them. Mondays will always be the podcast at 10 a.m., stuff like that. So it's on a consistent schedule, and you guys get all the notifications. The big deal is just making sure that there is 24 hours between all these videos so we don't end up overlapping and then you not getting a notification for a video. You got to play the YouTube game sometimes, and the YouTube game right now is I need to maximize the time that you guys have in getting those notifications. So whether you hit that bell icon, whether you turn all notifications on your phone through the YouTube app, whether you subscribe on Patreon, check out our Discord server, all that stuff, follow on Twitter. Reality is that I also need to make sure that the notifications are even being sent, and this is one thing I can do to improve the flow of my content is keep this consistent schedule, which always ensures there's only 3 videos ever coming out within a 24-hour period. That also means technically my live stream should start at 6 p.m., but that's going to be pretty difficult to start live streams at 6, so we'll see what happens. Maybe on days that I do a live stream at 6, I skip the morning video the next day. That's something I'm going to have to, or like if I do a live stream at 8 or 9 p.m. where I actually skip the next morning video to ensure there's still only 3 in 24 hours. Again, that's something I'm going to have to figure out in my head math-wise. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next video.